Hi, I'm Mary Ullmann Japhet, and welcome to Game On. I'm a board member at San Antonio Sports, and Game On is a celebration of San Antonio Sports' 40th year. We're celebrating our anniversary, and today we have a wonderful guest. It's just me, though, because my cohort, Jenny Carnes, is doing her civic duty, being a juror, and couldn't join us today. But I get to have all of the fun talking to the original, the one, the only, the creator of our beloved Coyote, Tim Derk. Tim, we're so glad you're here with us.
Well, good morning, Mary.
Well, I'm just going to read a little bit of bio, but honestly, we'll just jump in. But so you first introduced the Coyote at a Spurs game in April 13th, 1983, if the notes are correct.
That is correct.
Yeah. And of course, the Coyote has become not only synonymous with our NBA team, but with the city. I mean, you're the mascot for San Antonio, and it was just remarkable. You wore that suit almost literally for 21 years. I mean, you were in it probably more than out of it, I'm sure, over that time, and it appeared in more than 1,100 games and more than 4,000, and I'll bet that's a low number, community appearances, right?
But it's just amazing. And a lot of people concentrate on the games. They think, how many games did you do? Oh, I loved you at games. But it was really the appearances which made the Coyote part of San Antonio and made San Antonio part of the Coyote, because that's thousands of different appearances as the city grows, ribbon cuttings and things.
Oh my gosh, yeah. You're part of every child's childhood in this community and the fans as a whole, but you didn't step into a suit or persona that was already created. You created it. Can you tell us how it even got started in the first place? I mean, and you're not from San Antonio, so no, what brought you here?
So in my head, and now I'm thinking, okay, this is a really long story, so where can I start to make this short? I was doing theater, teaching tennis to an elderly gentleman that we played tennis on Saturday mornings, doing theater in the evenings. And that allowed me a chance to start doing commercials and stunt work and things like this. So here I am teaching this older gentleman acting. And the older gentleman, we'll start with him, he didn't want tennis instruction from me as a pro. He wanted competition. So we played the first 1 to 21 points, like ping pong.
Yeah.
Talk about sports.
You're right, of course.
In your community. But he was a Saturday duffer. I was a collegiate tennis player. So he would start with a 17-point handicap. So I had
21.
So I had to win 21 points before he won 4. And he was a wheeler dealer. And he told me if he won, he would pay me double the lesson fee in cash at the net. And then if I lost, the lesson was free. Okay. So I was a 25-year-old kid starving. I would do everything I could to try and beat him.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Oh, my God.
So now the ad agency from the Spurs, they decide the Spurs want a mascot. They go to their ad agency, and the ad agency guy who I've been doing stunt work and commercials with says, oh, I don't know what the mascot's going to be, but I got the guy. His name is Tim Derk. And the Spurs executives in the back, one of them piped up and said, my Tim? And it was Angelo Drosas.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
Angelo Drosas was the elderly gentleman that I was teaching tennis to on Saturday mornings.
Oh,
he didn't know I was an actor.
That's amazing. That's great. And even to go a little bit further back, you're from Illinois and came to Trinity University. Go Tigers. We're both Trinity grads. So that's what brought you to San Antonio. Okay, so then fast forward, they want a mascot. They don't know what it is, but they got the guy. How did the costume evolve?
They first decided they wanted me to be either a cowboy or an armadillo. Those are the two choices. They were flying around the room.
Can't even picture it now.
And I said, all right, I'm from Chicago at this point. You're right. I said, well, I think Dallas has the Cowboys. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but armadillo, the only one I've ever seen is belly up on the side of the road.
Yeah.
And I think they carry rabies, by the way. So I said, give me a couple of weeks and let me think about it. And I came up with the idea, ran it by my dad. What do you think? And then I came up with the idea that we got the suit 6 hours before the first game.
6 hours before the first game?
The suit was completed 6 hours before the first game.
Oh, my goodness.
Which is a doubleheader basketball game.
And the look of the Coyote really hasn't changed much.
No, it's amazing. Yeah. After 40 years, it hasn't changed much.
It's fantastic. So what's it like to wear that thing? I mean, I have seen you in that suit do gravity-defying tricks. I mean, just crazy stuff. And the whole audience goes, you know? Yeah, I'm rappelling upside down from the ceiling. What's it like in the suit?
Well, most of those stunts, partly they were just born out of naivete and not knowing what would happen. You just flip and see where you end up and that kind of thing. And the other one is with flips, and this is a good sports conversation that we might get into later, with flips and making baskets and dancing on roller skates or riding a unicycle. People are like, how do you do that? Or he's just a gifted athlete. And I think 40 years of San Antonio sports, gifted athletes they're gifted, but there's no way they get to the level where they are or ride the unicycle or whatever without a ton of practice. And so I get a chuckle when people say, oh, how do you do that? Like as if it just occurred.
Right.
That's not the way sports works.
Right.
Even the greatest athletes have 10,000 hours or whatever of practice at what they do.
Right. So tell me about that kind of practice. I mean, were you just in the gym or in the arena on non-game times, just bouncing and flipping?
Well, and to think, back in those days, we didn't have what they're called ball racks, where you have 12 or 16 different balls that you can just pull from and shoot. Just had one basketball. Here I am in the middle of Hemisphere Arena in the dark with one basketball, dressed as an animal, and I never wanted to practice with my hands, so I always wore paws. Because it's much easier with your hands. You have so much more feel. But paws is where that's where my bread was buttered. So I put paws on for everything. So here I am in the middle of Hemisphere Arena, shoot by myself with one basketball where I'd shoot it, and then it would go, if I missed, it would go doom, and go into the second row of the stands. I'd walk over, grab the ball, walk back over to the court, and then shoot it again. I would do that for hours. It's just amazing what athletes or people that want to get good at sports, what they'll go through. So I am just so enamored with anybody that is great at what they do. We had somebody who spun, I think it was 12, but I'll make it so it's not like I'm exaggerating, 8 basketballs at a time. She would spin them on different parts of her body. And she'd get 8 to 12 basketballs going at one time. And that's not just the amazing part to me. It's the part that she had to be at some point a little girl who learned to spin a basketball, got it, finally nailed it, and then went, you know what? What if I did another one? And then went and learned it with her other hand, her non-dominant hand, and could spin a ball. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
But then there's that little girl who goes, you know what? What if I put something in my mouth that had a little pencil on it? I wonder if I could do 3. And then she did 3. And I was like, you know what? And all of a sudden, she's traveling the country, spinning 8 basketballs, talking about helping kids get an education. That's the athlete that I'm so enamored
Well,
with.
you were a very good athlete. I mean, as you were an agile athlete who was a tennis collegiate athlete. And this is in Trinity's heyday of the tennis world.
I was a jack of many, master of none with sports. I would try anything.
Well, obviously it paid off for you, but tell me what it was physically like to be in that costume. I mean, it had, just hot, right? You must have lost tons.
Well, that was the challenge of it. Was there are a lot of great athletes, just like there's so many parallels. Singers, it's the same thing. They're great singers. Stand-up comedians, every time I listen to one on YouTube, I go, oh, he's the best ever. And then I swipe to the next reel, and it's another comedian, and I go, oh, okay, he's the best ever. I mean, there are just so many good singer, dancers, athletes, comedians. But with the suit, I had a way to differentiate myself, and it made it more of a challenge to do everything.
Right. And you broke a few bones, twisted a few tendons.
I say I wrote some checks I couldn't cash. Nowadays I'm moving slower than but if you'd have told me to slow down when I was younger, there's no way I would have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but tell me some of those stories. I mean, you really did. You kind of pushed your physical limit. Not kind of. You
broke my ribs twice, bruised my kidney twice, tore my meniscus, tore all the ligaments and tendons in my pinky. Have 3 surgeries on my left foot, 1 on my right foot. Tore my rotator cuffs.
Both of them, right?
I've torn both twice.
Oh, God.
We could. One time I was in an appearance with a bunch of 4th graders, which, by the way, I don't mean to be unangelic, but I would rather perform at the Folsom County Prison than I would for a group of crazy 4th graders. They were the hardest audience to try to control. So once I scored a goal in a soccer game, in a gym of fake soccer, and the kids went crazy and they were hugging me and everything. I thought this is the greatest moment ever. And then I felt this stabbing, and someone stabbed me in the back with a pencil.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
And
then another time at a 4th grade appearance. The kids were so excited to see me, we'll put excited in quotes, that they started rushing me and pushing me, and it got out of hand. Yeah. I was Paul McCartney there for a second when the Beatles
came. You were getting mobbed.
And I actually I was looking at the adults outside, and none of them were
no one was coming to your rescue.
They thought, and I thought, I am on my own here. Wow. And so I had to quickly move my way over to the right and climb a tree so that I could get away from the kids.
Wow, beware 4th graders.
This is God bless moms who have 4th graders.
Yeah, no kidding. My mom taught 4th grade for years, so this gives me a whole new respect for her.
But it was in the years before we had assistants. Now, of course, the Mascots all have assistants. But in the beginning, I was just on my own.
Well, let's kind of talk about the evolution of the persona of the cowboy. Of the Coyote. What did you want him to represent as you were creating him? And then not only physically creating him, but like in the costume, what did you want people to feel, to see?
Yeah, it would be so adult or whatever to think, well, actually, I formulated a business plan. It was an organizational chart that showed the way the Coyote would develop from year to year.
Not so much.
Totally lying. Yeah. We got the suit 6 hours before the first game. So what was our plan the first game? The actual answer is there was no plan at all. And in the beginning, the Coyote's name was down in front. Hey, get out of the way. There was no respect for the character. And because it had to be earned. Because as a mascot, at least back in those days, you were this close to being a mime. You know, it wasn't exactly a proud profession at that point. And so the character developed and really morphed over the years as I did it more. But in the beginning, there was no real game plan. I liked that I decided early that my character would always get the short end of the stick. I liked. If I went, I made sure that I had options to go either way. So I'd go out to the court in front of, 36,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
And I would shoot the ball from half court. I'd have a plan if I missed or I didn't. And of course, you're going to miss. So I went out to center court and I had a whole replay ready with our video guy for when I missed. And the replay guy at dinner before the game said, "No, you're going to make it." I said, "No, I'm not." So I went out to the middle of the court, shot it in front of all the people, swish. It was
sweet.
I mean, it didn't even touch rim. It was just swish. And I thought, geez. So then I ran over to the press table and stepped on that pad where you stick them to your feet and got some chalk. Like, I'm going in the game. I'm as good as these pros.
Yeah.
So I took my warm up and pants that had the snaps and took them off. And I had SpongeBob SquarePants boxer shorts. I forgot my uniform. Oh. So then I just put my tail between my legs and walked off. Like, I was this close to being in the NBA.
That's fantastic.
That's the kind of attitude I wanted to have towards it.
Yeah, and that's what just made the character so beloved. To bring it back to San Antonio Sports, I know that when we were hosting the U.S. Olympic Festival in 1993, we probably ran you ragged. I mean, we had you before, during, and many, many times after out to be to be the ambassador for the city. And that's truly what the Coyote became. So do you remember that?
Oh, and I got to do 17 different sports or something in just a few days. I learned shoot an arrow and do judo, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And I was trying to think about this. I knew who you were, and probably because I had to help you get into a corner somewhere to change into the costume over time. But how did you manage to keep your identity so quiet for so long? Oh, because you really were anonymous.
It was so important to me.
Yeah.
Well, and there is a real adult reason behind that. Is I wanted you to watch the Coyote on the court and see a Coyote doing things. I did not want you to watch a guy in a Coyote suit doing things. This to me the Coyote was my baby. It was a character. It was a being. I speak of him in the third person. The Coyote made that shot at half court. I didn't.
Yeah.
To me. And so having you think of the character and not the guy in the suit just was a world of difference to me.
For the last 4 decades, San Antonio Sports has dared this community to dream big through the transformational power of sport. For 40 years, we've inspired youth to get in the game, motivated San Antonians to live healthy, been a force behind places to play, and hosted events that impact. As we celebrate 40 years of dreaming big, we invite you to dream big along with us. To support our mission, donate today at SanAntonioSports.org.
You were one of the very first pro mascots. Certainly took it to an entirely different level. I mean, a professional level. And it wasn't that joke character anymore. It was a real part of the team and a part of the fan experience, for sure. You took that knowledge and helped train others, correct?
Oh, yeah, quite a few. Yeah.
Yeah.
That became a nice offshoot of it. Yeah. And now funeral homes have mascots. You know, it's just it's just amazing that it went from a couple of guys carrying around a rubber chicken or a whoopee cushion or whatever, and now we'd have the mascot conferences every year in Las Vegas by the end of it.
There's a mascot conference?
Every year.
Oh, man, I want to go. That
went
sounds
from
like
carrying
fun.
rubber chickens to carrying briefcases.
Yeah.
Because they're all making careers out of it. When in the beginning, we didn't set out to do that at all.
Yeah.
In fact, Angelo Drosas, back to him, he was such a wheeler dealer with the Spurs. I actually quit mascotting after 2 years and went to the University of Texas Business School to get my master's, MBA. Mm-hmm. And he called me in for lunch and said, let's have lunch. And I said, Angelo, I already knew him. I said, Angelo, I'm not coming back. You know,
this is after 2 years?
Yeah. I said, you can't make a living out of being a mascot. You couldn't back then.
Yeah.
And so he said, all right, just come in. We won't talk basketball. And I'm like, oh. So for Angelo, I came back in. We had lunch. He wrote some numbers on a napkin, slid it over, and I threw the napkin back at him. He said, full-time. I'll give you this full-time salary. And I said, Angelo, I'm in business school. And he wrote another number, and then I folded the napkin in half, put it in my pocket, got a U-Haul in Austin, and moved back to San Antonio.
Thank you, Mr. Drosas.
Smartest thing I ever did.
Oh, that's so great. That is, I did not know that part of the story.
So I was 9 weeks at business school.
Never finished the MBA?
Never finished.
Well, that's to the benefit of all of us in San Antonio. So tell me, one other thing I bet people don't realize is I understand you're the creator of the T-shirt cannon. Is that true?
That's a good question. Trying to think of an analogy. I was instrumental and a prominent player in its usage and its growth and the idea of what you could do with it. But I was not a guy who put on goggles, went in my basement with a soldering iron, and created. Yeah. You made it. No, I was the. I got the idea, and basically we found a guy. Yeah. You know, and then I took it to the level of where it's much more entertaining than what it was intended to be used for. So I'll take that part of it.
Well, you deserve that credit. I mean,
but I'm not an engineer.
Okay. Well, look what the crazy things people will do for a free T-shirt.
It's crazy. You could have a room full of Rhodes Scholars. Seriously, you bring on a T-shirt, they will go crazy. Yep. I saw someone knock over somebody in a wheelchair to get a T-shirt. Wow. And back then, the AT&T Center.
Okay. I know you have a million of them, and Tim's written a really great book that if you haven't read it, it's so much fun. Can you let me see it. So here it is. It's Hi Mom, Send Sheep. It's
got a great story for that right there.
Okay, so tell us a good story.
Hi Mom, Send Sheep. See, it's college kids used to hold up a sign on TV, speaking of sports, during football and basketball. They couldn't get home. Right. That maybe after 6 months. Right. So having a college game, football or basketball on TV was a perfect chance for the kids in the student section to talk to their parents somehow, signal them or whatever. Yeah. So a lot of college kids would hold up a sign that says, Hi mom, send money. Yeah. Meaning, I'm broke. I love you, but I'm, come on. Yeah, right. I'm waiting for the check. So I thought, okay, what would the Coyote do? So I was on national TV right here. So I thought, hi Mom, send sheep. Because Coyote doesn't need money. He needs sheep because he's hungry. You're right. So we talked earlier about how in the beginning the Coyote had no respect. His name was down in front. Yeah. Yeah, you're in the way, that kind of thing. But then gradually, like you said, as the character morphed, after we talked about, I started to get some respect. And in the beginning, particularly nationally televised games, I could see the camera pan the court, come to me, and then lift off of me and purposely not show me on camera. That's how illegitimate mascots were at the time.
Wow.
So at this particular game, when I was holding the sign that said, "Hi, Moms and Sheep," it was years later, and I had really begun to earn the respect because of my comedy or athletics. So the camera panned across the court, got to me, stopped, and I saw the red light come on the camera. They are obviously talking about me, pinpointing me right then. And that's the sign that I was holding. And back, you can see that was back in Hemisphere Arena days.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
And this is the picture that just shows the first time I knew the Coyote had reached legitimacy. Like, okay, we may have something here.
Yeah.
This may turn into something. But before that, it was just a free-for-all.
Yeah, down in front.
Yeah.
So you really built this character, and it's, as we've said a million times, it's beloved in San Antonio. After 21 years, it wasn't a conscious decision to stop.
Yes.
You had a real health crisis. You want to talk a little bit about that?
It's a very interesting story because it has some sports in it and it has some health issues in it. Being the Coyote, we talked about how I was beat up a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Certainly dehydrated most of the time. I make a joke. I've been thirsty since Nixon was president, is what I say. I mean, I just lost 6 pounds per night, no exaggeration. But of course, it's all water weight.
Yeah.
But you can't gain that weight. You can't go home and drink 6 pounds of water. It's going to take a while for that liquid to get in your tissues. So I would drive home from Spurs games with my thumbs smashed to my palms on my steering wheel and then I have to pry my thumbs.
Just cramping up.
Yeah, it was it was tough. So I was used to being concussed or stabbed in the back with a pencil or whatever it was, pulling my Achilles tendon or whatever. I was used to being beat up. So I missed some signs that there was they're called TIAs, which are little mini strokes. I missed the signs of TIAs. And so because of my physicality and the way I was being beat up, I ended up having a massive stroke in 2004. And these TIAs that I talk to you about, dizzy spells, not feeling well.
That wasn't unusual for you.
I didn't even tell my family because I just thought, I worked hard today. So again, naivete, such a silly. But if you have one, you have to go to the emergency room immediately because it's an impending stroke. After my stroke, the doctors asked me, did you have any of those? And I said, yeah, about 12.
Oh, wow.
And they were you could just see them
Anybody
looking
else?
at me like, what?
Yeah.
How could you? And I explained the situation and with the physicality of the Coyote. And of course, they understood then. But then I had the massive stroke. So my physicality caused me to have the stroke. But now, interestingly, after the stroke, the doctor said, now you're going to have to work out and do rehab 6-8 hours a day to get better. And I was like, you mean just keep doing what I've been doing?
Yeah.
Like maybe work out a little less?
Yeah.
So my physicality that caused me to miss the stroke, my physicality also helped me to recover so much better than other people. So I got to, they say your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. I got to be just a perfect example of that.
Well, I remember when that happened, and collectively, we as a city just kind of held our breath and said prayers and hoped that you would be well. And it's so great to see you now.
The community was amazing.
Well, but that's when when the larger community found out who Tim Derk was, right?
And that to me was a greater loss than the stroke. The stroke I can come back from. I ended up coming back maybe 3 years later so I could run a 6:52 mile. I could run 10 miles without stopping. I could ride they said you never ride the unicycle again. I made sure I rode it another 150 feet. I got that back.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So the stroke.
Just a little competitive with yourself, aren't you?
That's how you get to where you are.
That's right.
That's how athletes do it. But the loss of anonymity was something that was toothpaste I could not put back in the tube.
Yeah.
That just came out. So I ended up embracing that rather than being upset by it, and realized I was in a position where I could help other people in their times of adversity. It doesn't have to be a stroke. It could be a death in the family, or everybody's got their thing.
Sure.
So I was we didn't have podcasts back then. I was doing a radio show, and one of the radio show hosts said, after the show said, "Can you come in my office?" And he said, "You're in a position where you can help other people. I know you want to be anonymous and you want to talk about the character and not yourself, but you're in a position to help other people. You should write a book." And I said, "Thank you very much." Whatever. I went home, and it was back then we had answering machines. Remember that?
Yeah, right.
And I played the message, and it was Trinity University Press calling me to give me in advance. They said if I would write a book for them.
Isn't that something?
I have to do this.
Yeah.
And so the book was born.
Well, that kind of brings us kind of full circle. So what are you doing today? What's up with Tim Derk today, besides playing pickleball?
Yes. I love trying new things. And I'm still as competitive as ever. And I still work with other mascots in what they do. It's just amazing to see it taken to another level. And social media is now a big part of mascotting. And so I think if I'd had social media when I did, I would either have been famous, quickly famous, or quickly arrested. Because we got away with so much back then.
Yeah.
You know, that I'm enjoying being part of the game still a little bit, but enjoying watching the others because they're so much better at the social media part of the entertainment industry now.
Well, you're the one who started it all, and San Antonio is so grateful to have had you be the genesis of this amazing character who, as I said earlier, is not only the mascot for the team that we all love so much, but the mascot for our city. And it just really, really remarkable.
This was on a building as I was driving over here to the studio.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it's left-handed, just like that's just great graffiti.
Oh, that's great.
It's off near Grayson Street or something.
Yeah, fantastic.
And to see that the character has gone from just getting a suit 6 hours before a game and just winging it to being a part of the city so that you're part of graffiti and stuff. That's
pretty cool.
That is just amazing.
Yeah. It's fantastic. Well, we always wrap up these episodes by asking our guests what it means to them, the idea of the power of sport. We talk about that because San Antonio Sports' mission is to transform our community through the power of sport. So what does the power of sport mean to you?
Boy, we could do a whole hour on that. So I like to think I want to represent the little man, the individual. We talk about Bruce Bowen's been on your show. These are just amazing athletes. And we concentrate a lot on superstars. I really wanted to meet Jenny Carnes. She was All-American in basketball. She was on the tennis team. You wouldn't believe her grade point average.
Yeah.
Just these all individually amazing people that make up what I think makes sports great. It's that girl in her garage spinning basketballs on her knees or whatever. And I think it's the individuals that are just striving for excellence, whether it be in dance, violin, sports, and that practice. And that ends up just entering their whole life. They're great at making their bed because they want to do everything they do the best that they possibly can. And you get a group of those individual people, and all of a sudden you have a team. You get a bunch of teams that are that great, and then you have a bunch of sports that they're going to play, and then it just expands out, and all of a sudden you've got a city of exceptional people. And I think that's San Antonio.
That's great.
Yeah.
Tim, thank you so much for being a part of this. We really appreciate you coming in. It's awesome to see you and looking so great.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us on Game On, and a big shout out to our friends at the San Antonio Express News for hosting us. We'll see you next time on Game On.